Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Most people don't live by choice, they live by default. Here's the uncomfortable fact most won't admit. Nearly all social behavior is copy and paste. According to behavioral research, over 90% of people unconsciously mirror group norms just to avoid friction, rejection, or standing out. That's not individuality. That's survival mode wearing makeup. And this is where Sigma females quietly break the pattern. They don't announce it. They don't posture. They don't need a manifesto. In fact, if you're looking for them in the usual places, loud spaces, approval loops, trend cycles, you've already missed them. Sigma females don't reject society. They simply don't let it program them. While most women are taught what to want, how to act, and who to become, Sigma females make a far more dangerous choice. They decide for themselves. That decision changes everything. How they love, how they detach, how they tolerate nonsense, how they walk away without a speech, a warning, or a dramatic exit scene. No tears, no Instagram quotes, just gone. This isn't about being better. It's about being structurally different. A different operating system running quietly in a world obsessed with noise, validation, and performance. And once you see the difference, you can't unsee it, which is inconvenient because it exposes just how much of modern behavior is borrowed. So if you've ever wondered why Sigma females feel rare, unsettling, oddly calm, or impossible to categorize, it's not mystique. It's design. Number 1. Sigma females are internally governed, not socially regulated. Sigma females operate on a fundamentally different internal compass than most people. While the majority of women instinctively measure themselves against external markers, what friends think, what trends dictate, how the world labels success, Sigma females don't. Their decisions, their priorities, and even their moods are guided by an internal system that doesn't rely on applause, validation, or social approval. They don't follow the crowd because they don't need to. Following the crowd is irrelevant to them. Social rules exist for others, not because they lack awareness, but because they don't require permission to define themselves. This internal governance makes them extremely self-contained. They understand that most social behavior is performative. They see how people act, mimic, and adjust constantly to fit into invisible hierarchies, to gain acceptance, or to avoid scrutiny. Sigma females don't play these games, not out of defiance, but because they've already built a structure within themselves that holds firm. They have standards and boundaries that are internalized, not borrowed from societal expectations, which gives them an eerie calm in situations that stress or destabilize others. Because they aren't regulated by social feedback, Sigma females make decisions differently. Their choices are less about being liked or following tradition, and more about alignment with their own principles, values, and long-term vision. This independence can make them seem distant or even cold to those who interpret social engagement as a measure of warmth or loyalty. People often mistake their self-governance for arrogance or disinterest, but the truth is far deeper. Sigma females simply do not require external systems to validate their worth or dictate their behavior. Being internally governed also shapes how they approach life challenges. They are not swayed by peer pressure, viral trends, or collective panic. Instead, they evaluate situations through their own lens, prioritize their own logic and ethics, and act with deliberate intent. The result is a woman whose actions are consistent, powerful, and often unpredictable to those still operating on the default social algorithm. Their strength isn't loud, it isn't performative. It's the quiet, immovable authority that comes from knowing exactly who they are and refusing to outsource that power to anyone else. Number 2, they don't compete for attention because attention has no strategic value to them. Sigma females operate on a completely different metric than most people. While the majority of women are conditioned to equate attention with worth, popularity, or influence, Sigma females see it for what it really is, a superficial resource that carries far more cost than benefit. Attention demands energy, forces compromise, and invites scrutiny. Most people chase it as if it's currency, but Sigma females understand that constantly performing for others is exhausting and rarely rewarding. They don't compete for it because they've learned it has no strategic value in a life built on autonomy, intelligence, and long-term outcomes. This doesn't mean they are invisible. In fact, their absence of need for attention often makes them the center of curiosity and fascination. People notice them precisely because they don't broadcast themselves, don't seek validation, and refuse to participate in performative social scripts. While others are busy adjusting their behavior to gain likes, comments, approval, or admiration, Sigma females conserve their energy for decisions that actually matter: growth, mastery, influence that doesn't require public recognition. Their value doesn't come from visibility, it comes from capability, presence, and quiet authority. By refusing to compete for attention, Sigma females also avoid a common trap: performing inauthentically. Most social behavior is a negotiation of perception: what to show, what to hide, how to look acceptable. Sigma females sidestep this entirely. Their focus is not on being seen by the world, but on being aligned with themselves. They understand that attention is fleeting, manipulable, and often carries expectations they will never agree to meet. This detachment from the social spotlight also gives them an almost untouchable presence. People either respect them, are intrigued by them, or feel subtly unsettled by their independence. Sigma females are never beholden to the opinions of others because they never required those opinions to define their worth. Their lives are governed by purpose, logic, and self-determination, not by applause, trending metrics, or someone else's idea of influence. In a world obsessed with being noticed, this freedom is not just rare, it is revolutionary. Number 3. They are selective with attachment because they understand psychological cost. Sigma females don't rush into connections or let anyone in without consideration. Unlike most people who bond impulsively or confuse infatuation with loyalty, they measure attachment against the real cost it imposes on their life, time, and energy. They know that emotional investment is not free. It has consequences. Every relationship, every friendship, every flirtation carries a psychological price, whether it's compromise, distraction, or emotional drain. Sigma females evaluate that cost before committing, and they refuse to pay for connections that don't align with their values or long-term objectives. This selectivity doesn't make them cold or detached. On the contrary, when they do attach, they do so fully, intentionally, and with clarity. But they don't do it for validation or social expectation. They attach because it serves a purpose, a genuine connection or mutual alignment, not because society says they should feel lonely, insecure, or incomplete. They've learned that blind attachment often leads to disappointment, manipulation, or entanglement in unnecessary drama. By being selective, they avoid these traps and maintain the freedom to operate on their own terms. Their selectivity also makes them highly aware of people's intentions. Sigma females can read emotional agendas and patterns almost instinctively because they don't get lost in the illusion of attachment. They see manipulation, dependency, and emotional cost clearly, and they act preemptively to protect themselves. This isn't fear or mistrust, it's strategy. They understand that once they invest deeply, reversal is difficult, so they weigh every bond carefully. The result is a woman who appears mysterious, even elusive, to those around her. She doesn't chase validation, she doesn't settle for mediocrity in relationships, and she doesn't dilute her identity to fit someone else's expectations. Every attachment is a conscious choice, not a reflex, and this intentionality sets her apart. Where most people are reactive in love and friendship, Sigma females are calculated, measured, and deliberate. Their selectivity is not insecurity, it's intelligence. It is one of the most profound ways they protect themselves while navigating a world that rarely respects boundaries. This careful approach to attachment defines them, shapes their interactions, and makes them fundamentally different from 95% of women. Number 4. They don't fear loneliness because they never confused company with connection. Sigma females experience solitude differently than most people. While the majority of women often equate being alone with failure, rejection, or inadequacy, Sigma females understand that company does not equal connection. They've seen how people can surround themselves with noise, friendships, and romantic attention, yet remain profoundly empty because those interactions are shallow, performative, or conditional. They don't measure their worth by the number of people around them or the volume of attention they receive. To them, being alone isn't a void, it's freedom, clarity, and control. This detachment from the fear of loneliness changes how they navigate life. They are not desperate to fill every gap with someone else's presence. They do not tolerate toxic attachments simply to avoid the discomfort of solitude. They have learned to find completeness within themselves, to occupy their own minds and spaces fully, and to enjoy the depth that comes from being unshackled by dependency. This self-sufficiency allows them to engage with the world on their terms, not because they need external affirmation, but because they choose to. Because Sigma females never confuse company with true connection, they develop a rare emotional clarity. They can differentiate between temporary comfort and meaningful engagement, between distraction and genuine intimacy. Most people fall into patterns of attachment that satisfy the immediate need for attention or social approval, and then struggle when those bonds prove hollow. Sigma females avoid this trap entirely. They seek relationships that align with their values and only commit when they recognize authenticity and balance. Their comfort with solitude also gives them an unshakable presence. People notice it without understanding it. There is a calm strength in someone who is content alone, because it signals that their energy cannot be easily influenced or exploited. They operate from a position of self-possession rather than dependency, and this independence is both magnetic and intimidating. Loneliness doesn't scare them because they have never relied on others to define them. They are complete on their own, and that completeness is one of the most defining traits that sets Sigma females apart from 95% of women. Number 5. They don't need to be rare on purpose, they just are. Sigma females are inherently different in a way that cannot be manufactured, copied, or performed. Unlike people who try to stand out through appearance, behavior, or contrived uniqueness, their rarity is a byproduct of their internal structure, not a strategy. They don't cultivate mystique, flaunt independence, or signal superiority to attract attention. They exist fully aligned with themselves, and that alone sets them apart from 95% of women who are still operating on social scripts, expectations, or borrowed identity. Their difference is natural, unforced, and undeniable. This innate rarity comes from the way Sigma females live. Their choices, boundaries, and priorities are not dictated by trends, social validation, or the desire to fit in. They operate from clarity, self-possession, and internal authority, and as a result, their presence carries weight without effort. People are drawn to them, intrigued by them, or unsettled by them, not because they tried to be unique, but because they embody a structure and mindset most people have never developed. There is a quiet power in this kind of authenticity that cannot be replicated. Sigma females' rarity also stems from their refusal to conform. While most people compromise identity, dilute standards, or adjust behavior to fit external expectations, Sigma females remain consistent, deliberate, and aligned with their internal compass. They don't negotiate themselves for acceptance, attention, or ease of interaction. That uncompromising integrity creates a natural aura of distinction. Others notice it, often unconsciously, and it challenges their assumptions about how women are supposed to act, think, or feel. Their uniqueness is not a performance or a marketing strategy. It is the inevitable result of living a life where internal alignment, self-respect, and emotional independence are prioritized above all else. This makes Sigma females rare, not because they try, but because they exist differently. They are not exotic or unusual for effect. They are structurally uncommon. They embody a presence and autonomy that 95% of women don't, and that distinction is unmistakable, undeniable, and profoundly magnetic. Their rarity is effortless, and that is precisely what makes them extraordinary. Number 6. They trigger insecurity without saying a word, not by silence, but by self-containment. Sigma females carry a presence that is impossible to fake or forcefully command, and it has a subtle yet powerful effect on the people around them. They don't try to intimidate, charm, or manipulate. They simply exist, fully contained within themselves, and that self-containment exposes the cracks in everyone else's armor. People who rely on external validation, attention, or emotional leverage can't help but feel unsettled around them because Sigma females operate on an internal system of authority that doesn't bend to expectations. Their power isn't loud, but it's profoundly visible to anyone who pays attention. This effect is not accidental. Sigma females have cultivated an inner world so complete that it does not need to spill outward for recognition. They are emotionally stable, mentally autonomous, and deeply aware of their boundaries. As a result, they don't over-explain, overshare, or perform to fill a void, which is something most people unconsciously rely on others to do. When someone meets a Sigma female, the lack of access to her internal world highlights their own dependence and insecurity. She doesn't withhold to punish. She simply doesn't overexpose herself, and that contrast creates tension, curiosity, and often discomfort. People often misinterpret this as coldness or arrogance because they are used to filling silence with noise, reaction, or overcompensation. Sigma females don't play that game. They communicate through presence, through consistency, through alignment with their own values. Others may panic because they are forced to confront their own emotional deficiencies or neediness. A Sigma female doesn't need to validate anyone or explain herself to justify her choices, and that makes her untouchable in ways few can articulate. The unspoken power of self-containment also draws people in. Those who are confident and independent themselves are intrigued. Those who are insecure are destabilized. Either way, the Sigma female remains unshaken, unmanipulated, and fully in control of herself. This invisible authority, quiet, deliberate, and absolute, is one of the most defining traits that sets her apart from 95% of women. It's not performance, it's presence, and it is profoundly disarming. Number 7. They observe social games without needing to win them. Sigma females operate on a level most people never reach because they understand the structure of social dynamics without being enslaved by them. While the majority of women instinctively participate in hierarchies, competition, and popularity contests, Sigma females stand apart. They watch, analyze, and understand the rules, but they aren't compelled to play. Winning social approval, ranking, or influence for the sake of ego holds no real value to them. Their focus is not on proving themselves in someone else's arena, but on maintaining autonomy and making strategic choices that actually matter. This detachment gives them a rare clarity. They can see manipulation, hidden agendas, and unspoken alliances without being emotionally entangled. Where most people react impulsively, chasing validation, or worrying about status, Sigma females assess and move deliberately. They understand that participating in social games often costs far more than it offers in return: energy, authenticity, and peace of mind. By opting out, they conserve these resources for their own objectives and personal growth, rather than feeding the illusions of importance that others chase. Their refusal to compete does not make them invisible. On the contrary, their detachment is magnetic. People notice when someone is aware of the rules but doesn't conform to them. This independence can make others uneasy, jealous, or even obsessed with trying to understand her. Sigma females are often envied for the freedom they embody, the ability to navigate any social space without being bound by it. They are aware of the stakes, yet they refuse to overextend themselves for superficial gains, and this approach allows them to act strategically, choosing only the relationships, alliances, and opportunities that truly align with their purpose. Observing without needing to win also means they are rarely disappointed. Most people tie their self-worth to outcomes in social hierarchies, feeling success or failure in every interaction. Sigma females avoid this trap entirely because they measure themselves against internal benchmarks, not external applause. Their understanding of social games gives them insight, control, and calm authority, but never anxiety or dependency. This is why Sigma females are so fundamentally different from 95% of women: the ability to exist fully aware of the social currents around them, yet untethered and undefeated by them. Number 8. Their standards aren't inflated, they're calibrated. Sigma females are often misunderstood because of the clarity and firmness of their standards. Most people assume high standards are a sign of arrogance or unattainable expectations, but with Sigma females, it's not about being hard to please. It's about alignment. They know what they value, what they will tolerate, and what serves their long-term life vision. Their standards are precise instruments, calibrated to filter out noise, distraction, and compromise that would dilute their identity or drain their energy. Unlike many who adjust themselves to meet others' expectations, Sigma females adjust nothing for temporary acceptance. This calibration is both protective and strategic. They understand the psychological cost of relationships, partnerships, or even casual interactions that don't align with their principles. Every boundary, every expectation, every no they enforce is rooted in clarity, not fear. They don't lower their standards to be liked, to fit in, or to avoid loneliness. Instead, they are willing to remain unselected, unchosen, or misunderstood, rather than surrender their values. This is why people often mislabel them as cold, rigid, or unattainable, when in reality they are precise, intentional, and unshakable. Their standards also act as a filter for genuine connection. Sigma females rarely waste time on superficial relationships or shallow exchanges. They engage with people who operate on a level of integrity, intelligence, and self-awareness comparable to their own. This doesn't mean they are elitist. It means they understand compatibility isn't just preference, it's survival for their energy, focus, and autonomy. The result is that every bond they form is meaningful, deliberate, and sustainable, while most others drift aimlessly through connections that offer temporary gratification but long-term chaos. The difference is striking when compared to 95% of women, many of whom compromise, settle, or constantly adjust to gain approval or validation. Sigma females never confuse flexibility with surrender. They know exactly where the line is drawn, and they never step across it for the sake of others' comfort. Their standards aren't inflated, they're calibrated. This precision allows them to live authentically, engage selectively, and thrive independently, making them fundamentally distinct in ways most people fail to recognize until they encounter them directly. Number 9. They don't chase empowerment narratives because they already live empowered. Sigma females exist in a state of quiet authority that most people never reach because their power is internal and self-generated. While many women repeat slogans, mantras, or social narratives about empowerment, striving to prove strength to the world, Sigma females don't need the performance. Their empowerment is lived, not declared. They don't need to post quotes, make statements, or compete to demonstrate their independence, because it is already embodied in every choice they make, every boundary they enforce, and every situation they navigate. This lived empowerment is structural. It isn't dependent on validation from social circles, trends, or approval from others. Sigma females make decisions from a place of clarity, autonomy, and alignment with their principles. They don't participate in superficial demonstrations of strength because they've internalized it so completely that external validation is irrelevant. This makes them invisible to manipulations that easily trap others. While some women feel compelled to signal strength or seek affirmation for empowerment, Sigma females simply act in ways that consistently reinforce their own authority, intelligence, and self-possession. Because they already operate from empowerment, they are unshakable in circumstances that destabilize others. Criticism, social pressure, or judgment rarely affects them because their sense of agency isn't borrowed, it's innate. They don't expend energy convincing anyone of their power, and this creates a subtle but magnetic presence. People notice their independence and capability without needing overt displays, and that quiet confidence often makes others both respect and fear them. Sigma females also avoid the pitfalls of performative empowerment. Loud declarations of strength are often compensation for insecurity, dependence, or lack of control. By contrast, Sigma females act decisively, pursue their goals relentlessly, and enforce their standards without the need to advertise it. Their empowerment is complete, continuous, and invisible, yet profoundly effective. It allows them to navigate life with autonomy, resilience, and authority in ways that 95% of women never experience. They are empowered not because they say they are, but because their lives themselves are living proof of it. Number 10. They don't confuse independence with hostility toward relationships. Sigma females are fiercely independent, but that doesn't mean they are incapable of connection or unwilling to engage in meaningful relationships. Unlike many who equate autonomy with isolation or who use independence as a shield to avoid vulnerability, Sigma females understand the balance between self-possession and intimacy. They approach relationships deliberately, with full awareness of their own boundaries and needs, and they will only invest in connections that respect their autonomy. Their independence is not a rejection of others, it is a refusal to compromise their core self for the sake of approval, convenience, or societal expectation. Because they do not need validation from relationships, Sigma females enter them with clarity and intentionality. They are not drawn to drama, dependency, or manipulation. They recognize that emotional entanglement can come at a psychological cost, and they choose carefully who deserves access to their time, energy, and trust. This selectivity often makes them seem aloof or unapproachable, but in reality, it reflects a deeply considered approach to human interaction. They are capable of deep loyalty, care, and passion, but it is never given blindly or at the expense of self-respect. Sigma females also do not rely on relationships to define their identity or sense of purpose. This allows them to engage with others fully, without expectation, pressure, or neediness. They can love without suffocating, collaborate without compromising, and commit without surrendering their autonomy. In contrast, many people approach relationships with hidden agendas, dependency, or insecurity, and that often results in imbalance, conflict, and disappointment. Sigma females sidestep these pitfalls because they operate from self-sufficiency rather than obligation. Their approach to relationships, measured, intentional, and independent, creates a dynamic that is both magnetic and stabilizing. People are drawn to their strength and clarity, yet they also sense that nothing about the connection is forced or manipulative. Sigma females prove that independence and meaningful connection are not opposites. They can coexist, but only when built on respect, alignment, and mutual authenticity. This understanding of relational dynamics, combined with their self-possession, is one of the defining qualities that sets Sigma females apart from 95% of women. Number 11. They're difficult to manipulate because they don't fear losing people. Sigma females operate from a place of self-possession that makes them virtually immune to the subtle pressures and emotional levers most people rely on. While many women, and people in general, respond to fear of loss, guilt, or rejection, Sigma females have removed that leverage entirely. They don't cling to relationships, status, or approval because they never confuse presence with validation. This independence is not coldness. It is a deliberate strategy that protects them from manipulation, coercion, and emotional exploitation. People who try to control them quickly discover that the usual tactics, pressure, flattery, threats, or guilt, simply do not work. This immunity comes from a deep understanding of self-worth. Sigma females know that their value does not depend on anyone else's recognition or attachment. They recognize the fleeting nature of influence and control, and they refuse to trade their autonomy for temporary acceptance. This allows them to engage with the world on their own terms, without compromise or overextension. They can walk away from relationships, situations, or alliances without hesitation because their internal system of validation is complete, stable, and unshakable. Being difficult to manipulate also gives Sigma females extraordinary clarity in decision-making. Most people are influenced, pressured, or distracted by external expectations, leaving them reactive and vulnerable. Sigma females, by contrast, evaluate interactions and opportunities purely on alignment with their own principles and goals. They can see agendas, detect dishonesty, and understand psychological tactics almost instinctively because they are not emotionally dependent on others. This resistance to manipulation doesn't make them unreachable. It makes them formidable. They engage, invest, and care selectively and intentionally. Those who attempt to control them are forced to confront a harsh reality. Sigma females cannot be bent, bribed, or coerced. Their freedom is absolute, and this freedom creates both respect and tension in those around them. Where 95% of women may be swayed by fear, insecurity, or obligation, Sigma females remain anchored, proving that true power comes not from dominance over others, but from complete control over oneself. Number 12. They mature faster because reality teaches them, not social myths. Sigma females develop a depth and understanding of life that most people never achieve because they learn directly from experience rather than relying on societal narratives or popular myths. While many women grow up absorbing romanticized ideas about relationships, success, and identity, often crafted by media, peers, or social pressure, Sigma females strip away the illusions and confront reality head-on. They understand patterns, motives, and consequences because they observe critically and act deliberately, not because someone told them how life should work. This makes their maturity rare, unshakable, and profoundly practical. Their faster maturation isn't a result of age, it's a result of consciousness. Sigma females notice cause and effect in human behavior, recognize repeated mistakes, and internalize lessons without the need for constant guidance or reinforcement. They don't romanticize failure or cling to comforting illusions. Instead, they extract wisdom from setbacks, misunderstandings, and even rejection, turning experiences that would destabilize others into stepping stones for clarity, autonomy, and strategic action. This gives them a perspective that is almost surgical in its precision. They understand not just what happens, but why it happens, and how to respond without losing themselves. Because they learn from reality, Sigma females also have a level of emotional intelligence that surpasses most of their peers. They can read people, anticipate patterns, and navigate complex social situations without being manipulated or drawn into drama. Unlike those who are still learning through trial and error or following cultural scripts, Sigma females operate from foresight, self-awareness, and direct observation. Their decisions are informed, deliberate, and often preventative, giving them an advantage in life, relationships, and work that most people never attain. This early and deep maturation separates them from 95% of women who are still navigating the world through borrowed beliefs and societal conditioning. Sigma females are not just older or wiser. They are structured differently. They trust patterns over promises, facts over fantasies, and strategy over sentimentality. Their maturity is not performative. It is the natural result of learning from reality, and it underpins every choice, every boundary, and every interaction they engage in. It is this reality-forged wisdom that makes them fundamentally distinct, magnetic, and quietly formidable. Conclusion. Sigma females are not just different. They operate on a level that is fundamentally unrecognizable to most people. Every choice they make, every boundary they enforce, and every interaction they engage in is guided by an internal system that prioritizes clarity, autonomy, and authenticity over social expectation, approval, or validation. They don't chase attention, perform femininity, or follow social scripts because their power and identity are self-contained. They measure the cost of attachment, navigate life with emotional independence, and mature faster because reality, not myth, is their teacher. They are selective, deliberate, and unshakable, and their very presence exposes the cracks in the conventional systems most people live by. What makes Sigma females truly extraordinary is that their uniqueness is not cultivated, it is structural. They don't need to be rare, mysterious, or dominant on purpose. They simply are. Their rarity is the natural outcome of living deliberately, refusing compromise, and prioritizing self-possession above external validation. While most people operate on borrowed beliefs, borrowed approval, and borrowed identity, Sigma females exist with a clarity and alignment that is magnetic, unsettling, and profoundly powerful. They are not defined by society, trends, or relationships. They define themselves, and that alone sets them apart in ways most will never understand. Understanding Sigma females is more than a curiosity. It's a revelation about the possibilities of human autonomy, emotional intelligence, and self-mastery. They challenge assumptions, expose weaknesses, and model a life lived on purpose without surrendering identity. They are a living demonstration that true power, clarity, and freedom don't need to be announced. They simply exist. If this insight into Sigma females resonated with you, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into human behavior and psychology. Like, comment, and share this video so others can discover the hidden dynamics that set Sigma females apart. This is content you won't find in ordinary discussions, and every interaction helps uncover truths most people overlook. Don't just watch, engage, reflect, and step into a deeper understanding of what makes them extraordinary.